Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Mayan Speedplay number 4. We left off just after our something like 12-year regency. We are right at the very end of it now, just giving all of these territories that we want. We're just denoting that. And now we're basically going to just go ahead and declare war. We've been colonizing quite a bit, as you can see off in the corner. And we just declare this war. We have 24,000 men. You'll notice we are in the negative balance-wise. That's mainly because none of our allies will help us. And quite frankly, we want to be in a war after spending the last 12 years at peace. We need to get at least somewhere between 4 or 5 territories in order to actually be able to reform our religion with the last reform we need. There was something over a 20 stack, I believe a 30 stack right there, heading towards us, which is very worrying. We go ahead and raise additional mercenaries. We're not going to attack that army head on because that would be more likely than not completely suicidal. Luckily, it looks as though they're just running off in the general direction of our capital, which obviously isn't the best thing, although it is definitely better than really most of the alternatives for where they could be going. So we go rush over and start attacking all of the areas that don't have forts in order to just claim as much of their territory as possible. Sadly, we do get in a small battle, which stops us from actually just taking that one province very quickly. We do have enough forces that we're able to quickly overcome that issue. And now it's just a little bit of sieging. We do spread our forces out even further in an attempt to just siege even more territory. And their armies are just busy conquering our home peninsula, which is kind of worrying in one way, but also very nice in another because it allows us to take over their homelands. And we are breaking up into more groups so we can siege quicker. However, we only have one fort and it just fell, so now they're sending their whole 32 stack over to us, which means we need to get our forces back into clumps very quickly, otherwise we could lose everything. So we now have our armies just in groups of roughly 6. And it did manage to discourage them from actually attacking us, which was fantastic news, as that would have been very, very harmful. And now we're just sieging and counter-sieging. They're a little bit more lucky in this, as they're sieging one territory that doesn't actually have a fort, so that'll be done very quickly, and it is. However, we finished the sieges of those 2 provinces just now. We go ahead and we don't actually want anything from this state, so we just piece them out, getting out a decent portion of their army, allowing us to just roll through and just dominate all of their forces right there. We did manage to win that battle, which is very great news. With that, we go ahead and start splitting up our forces. One group going over to recapture our capital, the other going forward to just siege out their territories and probably move all the way to Mexico proper. With victory in that battle, we go ahead and split that force up. And alright, just like that, we've really achieved most things. We can get enough forces there that we can siege Mexico, and now everyone we don't need for that siege will come rolling over, back over to the front line. We do repay our loans with the money that we got from the country we peaced out with. So really we managed to do a little diplomatic coup d'etat right there, which was very nice. We do pull back the mercenaries. I consider just selling them, or just disbanding them. However, we don't have too much of a military advantage to our enemy, just in troop numbers, so we do keep them on just to be safe. With that all said and done, we start moving our forces over, right back to the front. Hopefully they will get there roughly at the same time the siege of Mexico is complete, and we'll be able to start just digging deeper into their countryside. That might be a little over-optimistic. We do go ahead and ask for military access, though, which lets us just go around over to Cutzamala, and we just send our 13,000 men over there. However, unfortunately, the entire enemy army managed to get there right as we arrived. We consider reinforcing, it would be too late, so we pull back and just continue working on the siege. So that's really just lends credence to the idea that we should not have dropped the mercenaries, so I'm glad that I held off on that. They are coming over to attack us. We just start pulling around away from there because that looks terribly dangerous for our army, and I want to get both of our forces together before we actually engage them in combat. I try to convince them not to go back. They aren't convinced, so we just cling along to the side, not attacking them, just kind of staying in a decent position. Now, at this point, I do kind of want to break apart the Aztec Empire on all of their subject states, just because they really are just a worrying thing to have. We want to break them apart so that when we do reform our religion in the 5 years that it takes us to go form it back, they don't end up just dominating all of the rest of the territories around us. They did recapture their capital. Luckily, we just flood our forces in that month. We go ahead and just speed through the sieges. We managed to win it immediately despite being at something like negative 35% because they only had 100 defenders. So they're recapturing Mixtec with the entirety of their military force. We're just shoveling our troops deeper into their vassal now. Kalima is also their vassal, but they have more liberty desire than 50%, and so they're just going to leave their armies in their country, which was an amazing break for us, as we didn't have to deal with what would have been almost certainly an overwhelming force. And so we just run through the various no man's land type areas, just the wilderness to go around the fort. We managed to win that. And now we can probably just wait a few days until all of these sieges of fortless territories finishes and probably just peace out there. We're able to do it. We won't be able to get all that much of their money, but I would rather the war end slightly earlier. And with that all said and done, we just start moving our troops back, coring all of our new provinces. Previously, we would have needed more territory in order to reform our religion after that war. This time around, though, we actually don't, because we have been colonizing. So we speed through a little bit. We get a new heir, which is quite nice, although that just means we have to keep our current ruler alive for the next 15 years, because I do not want to go through another regency. We declare war on our former northern ally, Totonac, mainly just because we're not really doing anything while our cores are constructed, and we may as well just kind of rush in and see what we can get from them. Worst case, probably a little bit of money. Best case, money and a bit more. They do have forces, which weirdly enough just kind of suicide into ours. I'm not entirely sure what prompts the AI to do that, although it has happened just throughout all of EU4 and even other Paradox games at some point or another. It's just kind of odd, but who's really to say? We also just mess around with our estates, generally just keeping most of them pretty happy with us. We send a few forces back to try to siege around. The Aztecs are also taking advantage of this war to just get little gains for themselves, which you really can't be upset at them for. Horrifyingly, though, England is sending troops across. It is 1539 now. A lot of those years have just escaped us. We've been going through them very quickly. England has arrived. They have a 2-star general. None of that sounds good at all. This is our first contact with Europeans that I was devastatingly aware of. And they are just exploring our entire countryside. We even see a small navy of theirs. So that's a bit worrying. It means we're running low on time. Luckily, first of all, we just speed up to get through the time of this siege. You'll notice their army is still around. And we still have about 30% left on all of these occupations. On all of these corings. We do get a rebellion. We just charge over and deal with that. Luckily, we win it, which is very nice. We've moved beyond the times in the past where we would just lose out loud and those sorts of things. We do fight a battle for the enemy capital. Luckily, we win that, and we are just going to rush on into Tarascan, which has declared against us in support of them. Now, ideally, the way this war will go is that we'll be able to end it roughly around the same time our cores are finished constructing, as this would have really just been wasted time otherwise. At least now we get to use it to rush our army into an enemy state and hopefully get something out of it. At least that's the plan at any rate. We are very close to the end of it, so we do go ahead and just get ready to make a peace deal. As I don't want to slow us down too much, we do speed through the sieges. Luckily, we do manage to win this one. And we go ahead and we can probably just get minor concessions, which since we're very close to finishing coring, we might just do. We can just rush into all of their territories that do not have forts and get that done within the month. That way we aren't really running out of time or doing anything too crazy. And there we go, just like that. We can go ahead and humiliate them, which would be quite nice. We do go ahead and do that. Now we go ahead and just force forced Totomic to become our religion. We then reform our bureaucracy, lose Zapotec and the other state nearby, and now all we need to do is border a European, and we can reform our religion and just boost ourselves heavily up in techs. It's all really just going very well for us at this point. We do have Portuguese ships off in the coast. They just went away, but they'll probably come back since it looks like they're just trading, as it was a Portuguese colonial nation. At any rate, now we can finally wait until our truces are done and then just rush back into all of those territories we've been fighting for, losing, fighting for, losing over and over again. We can just rush in and annex them and keep them a part of our empire essentially forever from now on. No more of this back and forth. We've done it. We have reformed our religion as much as we need to, and we can just begin the whole process of actual conquest. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow for that conquest.